This is the Skin Science Podcast. I'm Dr. Thomas Hitchcock, and here we'll investigate everything skin science and dissect it from a scientific perspective, analyze it from a medical perspective, critique it from a consumer perspective, and give insight from an industry perspective. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dr. Thomas Hitchcock, and with me in the studio, I have Angela Wilson McDonald. How are you doing, Angela?
I'm great, Thomas. Nice to be here.
Is it?
It always is. It really is. I love this stuff.
Yeah,
then we've got Dr. Jones here today.
Yeah, we do. We have Dr. You ruined the surprise.
I'm sorry. You know me. Gotta open my big mouth.
Yes, we have the brilliant Dr. Jones, Dr. Brian Jones. How are you doing?
Not too bad, but I'm only here because Dr. Alcom cannot be here because she's sick. So again, I know where my place is.
I wasn't going to say anything.
I don't know about that, Brian. We love
Substitute.
having you here.
No, but because today we're going to be talking about a clinical study that we did that we're very excited about, and it's already been out there for a while at this point. By the time this airs, it's going to be out for months and months. But we felt like it was worth at least talking about it and giving you our insight and our excitement. I also want to talk about one of our newest members, Abigail, who is a Ph.D. that just joined our medical affairs team, and she's going to squeeze in there with the peanut gallery. Hey, how are you doing? Can we hear Abigail?
Yeah.
Okay, Abigail, tell everybody what your role is with the company and where you came from, just really briefly, like 2 sentences.
Yeah. I'm the new medical affairs specialist. I come from a background in like lipid metabolism or just metabolism research, and I have recently got my Ph.D. and I'm now transitioning into this role and really excited to be here and I'm part of the podcast.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Yes.
And she's sitting next to the extraordinary filmmaker, Alan, who is fresh off of his whirlwind tour of promoting his newest film that he produced, or was one of the producers, and it was called The Performer.
The Performance.
Performance.
Yeah,
and it has Jeremy Piven. I haven't seen it, so I might be endorsing a crappy... No, I'm just kidding.
No, The Performance, starring Jeremy Piven and Robert Carlyle.
Will that be out
Very
sometime
nice.
in the near future?
Yes, soon, hopefully.
Yeah, so you guys have seen it, but we haven't been able to see it. I've seen clips of the filming, which was cool, like a while ago. And then Seti, she's here as well. Always wonderful to see her lovely face. And then Dr. Jose Maldonado. How are you, Jose?
I'm good.
All right, let's get to the topic at hand.
Yes.
Put up on the screen, please, the publication. Oh, you got the pictures. All right.
Go to the very beginning.
No, this is fine. So we want everybody to see that this is phenomenal results that we're going to talk about today. And today, if you look at this baseline versus visit 6 here, which is this gentleman, I'm going to share a story about this because he's an interesting case. You can see the extreme differences. And on the right-hand side here, we were very adamant that we have both a zoomed in as well as a macroscopic image, because one of the things in clinical photography that we all of us who are in that field know, it's very difficult to get good before and afters. It's hard to match the angle. It's hard to match the lighting sometimes, because a lot of people will look at these images, myself included, and be skeptical right up front, be looking for how to punch a hole in the argument of the photo. That's what we're meant to do as scientists. We're skeptical and by nature. But when we see this image here, you can see that it's indisputable. The texture is absolutely refined. So we were very excited. And this gentleman, we can put this down for now, but this gentleman actually was so excited about the results he was seeing. He had to move out of state for a new job, and so he was going to have to drop out of the clinical study, and he actually paid for himself to fly back.
Yeah, I think he moved to Seattle, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which is not a 3-hour
flight. It's not an easy flight.
Yeah, and so it's not a hard flight.
Well, it's a long one.
It's a 3-hour flight
for us in Dallas. We're used to getting places
and
quickly.
he paid for it himself.
Yeah,
and because he wanted
testimonial.
to keep going with the study, because he wanted people to see the results that he was having, and he wanted more BIOJUVE.
and that was the only way to get it at that point. Where were we commercial at that point?
No.
Were we commercial? Were we selling BIOJUVE by the time this study was conducted?
Part of it.
Dr. Jones, part of it. We had gone to market at that point.
So you all may not know, but this study took almost 2.5 years. And it was not because, it was a lot of reasons why.
It's not because your team is slow.
No, it's because we wanted to recruit the right patients, but also it was during COVID. And so it was a
Yeah.
very difficult time to do clinical research, as you can imagine. And additionally, the research site that we have at Crown Clinic is actually in a place that was a COVID location hospital. And so it was definitely a challenge, but it was one that we rose to. And I think we got some great results. So Angela, why don't we start? Before we start, I want to show you the puzzle
Now your
for
puzzles
today.
kind of look alike from the last
So,
podcast.
yeah, this was the last
There's some
one.
similarities to...
But they're very different. So this one is
Yeah.
very weighty. Feel how heavy that one is.
oh, wow.
It's brass, isn't it?
Brass, yeah. And
Get my bicep workout.
and so this is actually this is called a sequential discovery puzzle as well. And so it took me a while to get going on this one,
Okay.
but it's actually a lot of fun. It's actually called the
It looks like
The
a
brass
lot of fun,
monkey-
Thomas.
and scene. And so this is called the Brass Monkey Sequential Discovery, I think. And so Brass Monkey makes puzzles like this, but this is one of their last ones I think they're making. So anyway,
Very nice.
That's that. You can buy that if you want it.
It wasn't made by the Beastie Boys.
No,
I was going to say, brass monkey sounds familiar. That's going to take me back to
no.
you know,
That's
my
before my time.
earlier. Oh, well, it's before my time, too. Did I say that?
Okay.
Listening to, my parents' music.
I'm sorry. I'm just a young ingenue.
Oh, okay.
Is
Here
that
we
right?
go.
Can you be a
Here
male
we go.
ingenue? Anyway, let's move on to the topic at hand.
Yes.
This is the what we're calling biome-boosted microneedling. And that's very exciting for us because we had a question early on in the development of the technology that's known as Zycrobe technology. When we decided we were going to bring it into the clinic, we saw great results. You guys can look up that study. We'll put it in the link below. That was published a year and some change ago. But then our team that was getting ready to launch the Zycrobe technology into the field in the brand BIOJUVE started asking some pretty interesting questions that we felt we had to answer. And so I'll let Angela kind of talk about that.
Yeah, actually, this was one of, and I remember it definitively, and you're part of this story, Dr. Jones, but it was
I'm in
COVID.
trouble now. Okay.
No telling where this is going to go. It was during COVID when we were all operating via Zoom. And the question that we were looking to answer, because we knew that when we walked into practices nationwide, we have over 11,000 active customers just in the U.S., and we're in 50 countries with SkinPen. We knew when we walked into practices that and brought in something as innovative as BIOJUVE, their next question was going to be, well, what about my SkinPen patients? Because we walk in the door and they see SkinPen. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want in that moment for our team to not have the answers for them. And
Right.
so I remember when the money was being decided, are we going to fund the study? And it's COVID. Revenue was down, quite honestly, because of what was going on in the world. And we had the entire team on Zoom, and the the president of our company says, do we really need this study? And it went back and forth a bit. And I said, I think there's two people on the call, Dr. Brian Jones and Dr. Mona Alcom, who probably know more than anyone about SkinPen and BIOJUVE because they were on the clinical studies on each side. And I said, so Dr. Alcom and Dr. Jones, you tell us, do you believe if we were to do this study of SkinPen plus BIOJUVE that we have an opportunity to see something special? And then there was this long pause and I was holding my breath. And suddenly they both said, yeah, we do. And that was the moment that it was decided that Crown would make the commitment to bringing this data to market, which, as you just said, was 2.5 years. It was time of our team. It was an investment financially. So I'm thrilled that we have this level of data to bring to our customers. And I know it answered a big question for our customers as well. So,
Yeah, well, actually, what you didn't mention was that there was a bit of a debate on the types of patients, the indication that we're going to look at, because the SkinPen has a couple of indications in the U.S. And there was a lot of people that wanted to go after wrinkles and such. And I think the clinical team was more wanting to do acne scars, and there was a little bit of a back and forth there. And I'm very glad that we went for acne scars for what we'll talk about in a few minutes.
And why? Why was it so important for you, Dr. Jones and Dr. Alcom, to focus on acne scars?
Everyone has to go back to the fact that we also during COVID, before the study, we did the clinical study looking at endpoints for BIOJUVE and looking at lines and wrinkles and and we saw some fantastic, amazing results. And we thought that would be best carried over in regarding the scar and repair of the scar, where it wouldn't make much difference regarding lines and wrinkles So we really went after a tougher endpoint and a more meaningful endpoint, especially for those clinicians and those that are doing treatments with SkinPen. Lines and wrinkles, it's fantastic.
Wonderful.
It's great.
Right, yeah.
But again, really, acne scars is a I guess I'll say is a harder endpoint.
Yeah.
And so that's really why we wanted to look at that and see a greater improvement, or look at it as such that it would be a more appropriate test for looking at BIOJUVE with microneedling.
And I'll say too, just to expand on that just a little bit, it's, when you treat acne scars, you change lives.
Yeah.
It's not about just making the people prettier all the time. It's about, really affecting somebody's life, the confidence that they bring out into the world, the self-esteem that they have.
Well, we've seen that over the years.
Definitely, we've
with
seen
just
that.
microneedling alone, with just SkinPen alone. The big difference is that, the idea basically comes down to, why does microneedling work? And why does BIOJUVE work? And are those two things something that can actually contribute
Potentially
to
synergistic.
Yeah. And so that was what we set out to, but really one of the main reasons why I was pretty dead set on doing acne scarring was because one of the critiques I had heard about our initial study with BIOJUVE was that the demographic was much older. And there was people saying, so this is for postmenopausal women? And I know that was just being tongue in cheek or whatever, or just a way to sell against whatever. But I thought we need to bring a much younger demographic into this, which a lot of them can have acne scars, but not a lot of them are going to have a lot of wrinkles or signs of aging necessarily. And so this allowed us to actually find a nice range of not just age and gender, but also ethnicity, because everybody has acne. Not everybody has acne, but every demographic has had experience with acne. And a lot of them will have some people with acne scars.
So the original BIOJUVE study, though, was ages 18 to 70, but you're saying it was heavily weighted in the older population.
Because, again, we were looking for lines and wrinkles, and that was really what was driving that. And typically you're on an older age, it's towards where you start picking up lines and wrinkles.
It's hard to see improvement in wrinkles if you don't have any.
Yeah. So, and then in that particular study too, we showed that over 90% of study subjects saw changes in texture of the skin, and pretty significant changes in texture of the skin in some of those subjects.
That's one of the
did
other
that
reasons.
feed into it as well?
Exactly.
So you're thinking...
That's why we had the confidence level.
Some of those individuals that had deep creases around the lip and on the chin area, that totally disappeared.
Yeah.
That, again, as much work as I've done in the number of years I've been in doing AHAs and retinols and everything else, that I had not seen before.
You had not seen before.
So the fact
Which also James Layden said the same thing.
That's correct.
He was like the grandfather of dermatology.
Yeah. So again, that was what also prompted us going, okay, let's see how it plays into scars and the remodeling of scars. Because if it can do that for deep lines, what can it do for...
Alone.
Yeah.
BIOJUVE can do that alone. And we knew what SkinPen could do alone.
Right.
What is the potential together? And then I'll have to say, too, Dr. Hitchcock, that over the years, too, as we were bringing SkinPen to market and developing SkinPen Precision to become the first FDA cleared, you always said to us, in fact, I remember when you revealed it to me for the first time in a parking lot in Minneapolis.
Why is she shaking her finger at me?
Because there's moments in your career that you just are, and it was when you said to me these words, I've never forgotten them, that as we trigger skin remodeling in the skin, that if we create the optimal environment for skin remodeling, we have opportunity for better results.
Absolutely, and I stand by that.
And it was the first time you ever said it. We were heading into an educational event in Minneapolis with a large number of customers, and we were just talking about whatever at that time, and that has always stuck with me. That's why I remember where we were at the time. But now we have an opportunity to show, well, is that optimal environment created by a healthy skin biome and having potentially zycrobes live and thrive in the hair follicles and emit bioessentials 24/7. So
yeah, there's a lot to it, but yes, you're right. The question is, what is that optimal environment?
Yeah.
And that's where, again, we don't want anybody to think that we're saying that everybody is doing it wrong and that we're doing it right. What we're saying is that we have found a way that looks like we have found a different way to make it to where you're optimizing the way that the body wants to act on its own, like the way that physiologically we're supposed to act with our skin before we started getting into all the preservative systems and all that stuff that has kind of caused this rash of dysbiosis that has happened in first world countries because we over cleanse and we over preserve and such. And so it's about saying, not that everything's bad, but we've found a way to actually take a step back and go back a little bit back to nature And that's kind of the idea, is that sometimes nature knows best.
Well, I wouldn't say that everything's bad, but what I'm proud of is we actually
I
did.
did.
I know. Well, let me finish my thought, Dr.
All
Hitchcock.
right.
Is that I'm proud of the fact that we did the work to show
sure.
not that it's just not bad, but that we could actually change remodeling by creating that optimal environment. Because I think there's a lot out there. I mean, you just mentioned all of the different companies that you've worked for in the past and the work you've done with other molecules. And there are a lot of, there's good traditional skincare out there. There's no doubt about that. But how many of them have done the work to show they can actually change results
But it's
from
about taking it
microneedling?
further, not just the molecules that are important, it's the environment, because that's the crux of all this, is that molecules are great. We have a bunch of great molecules that we know are healthy and necessary for the cells to do their thing, to be in symbiosis. The problem is that people just don't realize that we're not sterile and that there are microbes on our skin, and how we treat them will change what they do. It will change the way that they multiply. It will change the way the things that they secrete. It will change whether they're pathogenic or beneficial or protective. Not always that. It's not always that one's going to be either pathogen or beneficial, but it changes a lot of different things. And so something that is beneficial or commensal can become pathogenic if it's in the wrong environment. And so these are the things that people don't realize. And so we were basically putting chemical soups on our face that had great molecules in it, but forgetting that those chemicals also affect the microbes and change what the microbes do and the way the microbes act, and even sometimes change which microbes are able to thrive. Some of which and cause a dysbiosis or an imbalance. And that's really the crux of the matter, is that it's not about just the molecule, just the skin cell. It's about the whole biome. And that's why we call it biome-boosted microneedling, because it's the whole biome, which...
Skin cells, microbiome, and the environment.
Right.
It's all three versus just one of those
and that
exclusively.
is why we did not do the clinical studies with just the microbes. We had the whole regimen in there because now not all of the regimen, like the sunblock, for instance, is not critical to the theory. That's just there as an adjunctive.
Because it's important that patients use
yeah.
sunblock
Well,
in both groups, in the generic group as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to use sunblock, we made sure we try to make it compatible and all that stuff. And so the moisturizer as well and such. So there are some things a little more important than others, but the whole idea is that if you just use the microbe, you might get some benefit, but the fact is, if you just start killing them off by using everything else, and we can't police everything that people use, but the thing is, that's where even the live microbe itself is formulated in a way that it's actually more comprehensive. It's not just giving the microbe, it's giving an environment, it's giving a food source, so that while it's on the skin, and that's why I have since learned my lesson, rather than trying to placate people by saying, sure, you can try using other things with the Zycrobes at night. I've said, just give the nights to BioJuve.
Yeah,
just let the Zycrobes do their thing. Don't mess with them.
Yeah.
Because that's really the whole context is, if the microbes can't do their thing, if the microbes in your skin are being bothered by assault from all these other things, it's hard for us to change anything that we've already observed. You're not going to get past dysbiosis if you aren't going to change some of your habits and some of your philosophies. And that's really what drove this, is that, to your point, can we change even the benefit of wonderful modalities in aesthetic medicine by optimizing skin health with this philosophy?
And going back to what you were saying about molecules and formulations and such, but is it different that in, let's say, traditional skincare, while it may be good for different skin conditions, I mean, you know this, Dr. Jones, it might be good for hyperpigmentation or dryness or what have you, but is it a different scenario when you're actually trying to remodel the skin? Because again, just because those are good for general care of the skin, does that mean they're also good for remodeling, or is there a chance that they're actually working against that remodeling in some ways?
It's possible. What I would say is, not everything about biology is known. We're always finding things out all the time. The biggest thing is that when you look at molecules in isolation, things in isolation don't act the same way as the concert that's happening on our skin all the time.
Okay.
So you can test things in isolation, and for instance, vitamin C is a great antioxidant. It's also tyrosinase inhibitor, so it can brighten the skin. But then you have to ask yourself the question of it's not just the vitamin C in that formulation. What else is in that formula? It's probably heavily preserved because and it's a very labile molecule. And so how does all that affect the physiology of the skin? So it's like with a lot of modern medicine is that you address a symptom, but that drug may have other symptoms that you didn't have prior.
Or other mechanisms. Whoa.
Such enthusiasm.
But like a spider's web. I mean, again,
Absolutely.
it goes all over and have different reactions that are some that you want and some others you don't want.
Yeah.
You see that with retinoids.
Yeah, or biologics. Biologics that can really work miracles when it comes to like psoriatic arthritis or psoriasis that's plaque psoriasis, but then you can get issues like a large increase in risk of infections and other things as well.
Correct.
And so that's kind of the trade-off here. And so the idea is rather than just flooding with one thing or another and just flipping a coin whether you're going to see some kind of detriment in addition to the benefit, why don't you just try to make your skin holistically imbalanced the way it's supposed to work? Because really when you think of all these signs of aging, there are a lot of common threads. So why do you have dyspigmentation? Why do you have wrinkles? Why do you have textural issues or sagging? A lot of this stems to a common thread that if you just allow your skin to do its thing, you're going to mitigate a lot. And that doesn't mean you're not going to age, because that's a whole other thing. And plus you have...
There's a lot that goes into that beyond just
you have the environment. So that's why sunblock's important. You have pollution that sits on your skin.
General health,
stress,
genetics. And
we just saw a publication that came out the other day or something about, not a publication, but an article that came out about saying that stress can cause malignancies to propagate further and stuff. And it's like, this is not surprising. We knew stress is bad for you, but it's also, it can wear on your physiology in other ways, like aging. But the fact is, there's a lot of things that contribute to aging, and a topical cannot get rid of your stress. It's not going to get rid of the sun. It can block the sun, but it can't get rid of pollution.
It can protect you from the sun. I'm going to get you on the block. But
there you go. For those in the know, that's a regulatory thing that he just did. Okay. But regardless, there's a lot of things that you can do with a topical, but that's where the beauty of this philosophy, this holobiont philosophy, this Zycrobe technology really comes into play, because it's making sense of what the body does naturally by itself when you don't disrupt it, and trying to say, can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we have a high-end experience like we like, but still allow our bodies get dynamic results, but also allow our bodies to do what they're supposed to do naturally.
And so therefore not experience some of the inherent side effects that you can have with other with molecules.
Right. So it's saying if I have dysbiosis that's contributing to aging, rather than slapping a molecule on to try to fix that, why don't I just go to the source and not have dysbiosis in the first place?
I love it. Well, I think we should dive into the actual study. I love this because we just heard why we made the commitment to invest in this particular study. We heard why you chose to we chose to focus on acne scar patients. There's 40 subjects in the study. There's two groups, one on generic skincare. So this is just a commercially available cleanser, moisturizer, SPF. Right. The other on the 5 marketed SKUs of BIOJUVE. So why set up that scenario? Why was it important to show that this was not SkinPen alone versus SkinPen and BIOJUVE? It was that there was some level of care for each group.
And it's legitimate care. Again, the formulations, we did look at the formulations, make sure that they were quality formulations. We just wanted to make sure that there was a relative comparison between the two. And we also did a case in which we started with the treatment before the microneedling, so that way we brought the environment in play prior to actually the microneedling. So again, they used both product lines, whether they're group 1 or group 2, again with the BIOJUVE or with the commercial product line for 2 weeks. And then
prior to the first procedure.
Correct.
Which I think
like a placebo.
I actually want to bring that up too, because we just did a webinar with Dr. Anna Perret, who's a very well-known dermatologist out of Atlanta. She feels the prepping of the skin, and she was talking about this study as well. The prepping of the skin is every bit as important as what you do in between the procedures, because basically then you're going into that first procedure in a very different place than had you not prepped the skin, correct?
I agree.
And in what way? What does that 2 weeks allowing that first procedure to do that wouldn't have otherwise been there if you had gone to the first procedure without pre-treating?
Well, go ahead if you want to start, or I can start.
I will start because I have an idea and it's going to seep out of my ear if I don't say it.
Go ahead.
Well, then hurry.
Well, the thing is that I feel very strongly that we can't look at somebody's biology statically, meaning like if I have, again, I'm going to say the word dysbiosis. If I have dysbiosis and I do a procedure versus if I have symbiosis to do a procedure, it's very different in the way I react, because the inflammatory cascade is just that. It's a cascade. And when we look at, the evidence that I've mentioned in previous, which is there's a 2018 article that talked about how certain microbes can cause the immune cells to actually become either quiescent or symbiotic, or they can become inflammatory and lead to things like acne or other disease states. If you have that type of cycle going through your body where you're in an inflammatory state, you're probably not going to react to modalities that need a balance of inflammation, which microneedling is one of them. Microneedling uses inflammation in order to remodel the skin. And if you're overinflamed, that could have consequences. And so we don't know what those may be. We see great results by itself anyway, but that's not saying that everybody on the earth has dysbiosis that gets microneedling. But with when you have a quiescent microbiome or a symbiotic environment, a symbiotic biome, then that's going to allow your body to concentrate on the remodeling process. And it's not going to have to deal with
fight with other concerns.
Right. You're not necessarily predisposed to that inflammation that's more fibrotic in nature, or, that type of thing.
So you're allowing if I'm hearing you right, you're allowing the repair mechanisms,
Yep.
to the body to concentrate on the repair mechanisms that have been triggered by the procedure and not have to be fighting other issues that the skin may be experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, the cells do have a finite amount of energy to deal with things. And so, Brian, did you have a...
So, yeah, Dr. Jones.
I guess I'm here for also Dr. Alcom, but I think she would probably talk about the fact that, again, it's really setting up the skin so it actually responds properly right out of the gate. So, again, we saw reductions in erythema and swelling and itch and
That's true.
All the endpoints regarding, from the very first microneedling through all the different 4 microneedlings we did, it always had a case in which there was reduction in the response, as towards overt response and again, irritation, erythema and the like, with the BIOJUVE versus the normal skincare.
Right. And he's talking about what we would kind of consider side effects of getting microneedled. And so we saw, and that's part of the clinical research that you can see in the publication that we'll link below this. By the way, I forgot already, but I was supposed to say, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you could hit like and subscribe and all that jazz, just so we can get the algorithm going, because we do want to get this out there for people to see. But if you're listening, just put us on your favorite lists and such, and we're going to put these links on both places so that you can have those. But if you look at the publication here, there's a lot of stuff in here that's technical. So if you're somebody who's not apt to understanding the technical stuff, don't worry about that. We do have some resources that we can provide that is a little more boiled down. But basically what he's showing here is you can see these line graphs, the blue versus the red basically, and showing that the red group here, the red lines here are much higher, basically for every endpoint that is associated with post-procedure or
what you would
side
anticipate.
effect type of
thing. Post-procedure.
Like redness, swelling, peeling, itching, that type of thing.
Right. So in the group 2, which was the control, the placebo, or the regular commercially available, again, those numbers were not bad. I mean, there weren't outrageous or anything like that. They were pretty much typical.
Because the recovery from microneedling is pretty quick regardless, unless you've introduced something that potentially creates a negative situation.
Correct.
But if you're following
then
protocol,
you need to listen to the other podcast.
Then go back to the other protocol. Yeah.
But again, in this particular case, it again, the use of the BIOJUVE and having that pre-treatment, getting the skin in the right format or the right positioning, gave us a better outcome in doing so.
Right.
Versus just what you'd expect just doing skincare.
And I think that's his sentiment there, and your sentiment is very important because, there's a lot of, over the years, there's been a lot of people that have tried to say you should use this product and that product after microneedling because it reduces the redness or the peeling, whatever. And what we're showing is that it's not about this acute use afterwards necessarily. It's more about generally caring for the skin throughout the process so you can get the best results.
I think that's so important. And when you think about pre-treatment from a commercial standpoint, from an industry perspective, when we're talking to clinicians and practice owners, a patient goes into a practice not to buy a procedure, they go into a practice for a result. And if you think about the opportunity, if the patient's investing in, let's say, a package of microneedling procedures to get a result, in this case, acne scars, to make that first procedure be that much more valuable to that patient, I think that's a great way to look at it. If I'm going to invest in 4 procedures, I want that first one to be as valuable as number 2, 3, and 4. And I think a great way to do that is to make sure that the skin is ready for that procedure, which we did with BIOJUVE in this case, and in both treatment groups as well.
So let's dive into the before and afters, because part of the reason why I was so happy that we went with the acne scar indication is because there's something that people with acne scars tend to more prevalently have than people that don't have acne scars, and that is acne. And so,
by definition,
they just tend to be more likely to have acne still. And so you can see on some of the younger people in the study, it was kind of an interesting phenomenon because one of the things that, of course, we've been very cognizant of since I started this research in a decade plus ago, was that people always were questioning why I chose the specific species of bacterium to be a therapeutic type of, in a therapeutic type of mentality when they were thinking it was a pathogen. And so I'm very acutely aware that people are often asking, is this appropriate for people that are predisposed to having acne? If you already have acne, or is it going to make it worse, type of thing. And we just had a podcast where we talked about whether you can spread and all that. But that's where, for me, the way that Dr. Alcom and her team chose these individuals, you can see that there's some active lesions on a lot of these individuals. And you can just scroll down really quickly to show some of the individuals here. Just keep going to, like this one, you can see she's not bad. Yeah. She's predisposed though.
She's
you
acne
can
prone.
See,
You would call that acne prone.
Yeah,
correct?
You can see she has acne scars, but she also has some lesions there. If you go down further to right there.
There's
right
the
there.
Fitzpatrick 6. Oh, okay.
So this gentleman here, this is one that actually was from, the gentleman on the top 2 rows was actually from the group that had the microneedling with the generic skincare. And one of the things that was interesting was in these groups, they were all pretty much predisposed to acne because they all had acne scars. But you can see there's not really any resolution per se. It doesn't look like it's gotten any worse, but it looks like there's not a lot of resolution of the acne, where interestingly with the other group, we definitely saw much more improvement in the skin quality and texture across the board when the study was completed. Now, of course, we're not saying this is meant to treat a disease state. We're just saying that there was a clear difference between the groups, and they were all predisposed to acne.
And both treatments with microneedling did show improvements.
That's right.
So again, it wasn't a case that one had improvements and one didn't.
No.
But certainly in the acne scar areas, both actually did show
Correct.
improvements.
But what we didn't see was any worsening across the board.
Absolutely correct. I just want to make sure that it's not a case that they depended on the product afterwards. Microneedling
Right.
doing the heavy lift.
Well, and I think, that's something we know definitively. Yeah. We've been working in the microneedling space for 10 years. We know that SkinPen alone is going to get results for patients. Yeah. Nobody's going to argue that, but do you have the opportunity to get better results? What you showed previously is that what we talked about previously is we have an opportunity to improve the patient experience. If you have less redness, dryness, flakiness, we're really maintaining that little to no downtime experience that patients are gravitating towards and are buying into when they buy a microneedling or at least a SkinPen package. One of the things that's interesting, and I don't think we're prepared to show graphs, or maybe we are, is looking at visit 6, which was 6 months post 4th procedure, which was the final procedure, versus visits 5, which was 2 months
That's
post
too confusing
4th procedure.
For our listeners.
Okay.
I think we need to break it down. Can you pull up figure 4?
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
We're pulling up figure 4, which is in the publication linked for you guys to look at. It's open source if you want to go look at it. But basically, this is the live grading and also the photo grading of all the individuals. And so they basically averaged it all. And what Angela, I think, was alluding to was that it's important to interpret this correctly, because the red line is group 2, which was the generic skincare. All these people were microneedled at the exact same times, but then the blue it was the BIOJUVE group, and it appears that the red line is not improved at all, and it looks like the blue is improving. But keep in mind that the first data point here that we're looking at is actually 2 months after the final treatments. So they're basically already remodeling. They're already seeing results. And also, this is using a scale where the number 5 means it got worse, 4 means it didn't have any change, 3 means it improved, 2 means it much improved, and then 1 means it very much improved. So every data point on these graphs show much improvement. It's just that there's the difference here is that you had people that reached at the 2-month mark and plateaued at much improved, between improved and much improved, versus improving from very much improved, or much improved to very much improved area for the BIOJUVE group. And so that's what I think you were alluding to, is that it's not that we're not seeing results. It's just that we've now been able to show that if you optimize the skin biome, it can just receive treatments better, and we're just going to see better results.
So the SkinPen plus generic improved. That was clear. In fact, a little bit lower. Improved would have been a score of 3, and I think it was around 2.8.
Yes.
What's interesting to me, and this is where I'd like to get your thoughts, is between visit 5 and 6, which was 4 months, the
last 2 treatments.
The last 2 endpoints.
I mean, last two visits.
Last 2 visits.
Yeah.
The generic skincare stayed the same. They had gotten a good score. They remained there.
And they used it throughout the study for everybody listening, that whatever group you're associated with, they used those topicals up to the very last day.
So 2 weeks before the first microneedling, and all the way through 6 months after the last
microneedling.
Which is 9.5 months.
9.5 months.
These topicals.
So, but the BIOJUVE group continued to improve. Is that a sign with exactly what we're just talking about? If you create an optimal environment for remodeling, you have an opportunity for better results. Is that a sign of it? Because there were no procedures in between visit 5 and visit 6. It was only how the skin was being treated at that point that was driving results. But yet now we're down to a score of 1.8, which is getting into the very much improved range. So
keep in mind though, they're not being treated here. The remodeling process is happening.
That's what I'm saying. But when generic skincare was on board, there was no difference between 2 months post 4th procedure and 6 months. When BIOJUVE was aboard, there was a significant difference between 2 months post 4th procedure and 6 months post 4th
procedure. So I think the word that you use is opportunity, and I think that's really what we got to say, is that it does provide an opportunity for possible improvements over a longer period of time and more improvement beyond the direct microneedling. We do know the microneedling and the remodeling process is an extended period of time. It may take up to a year regarding some of the end results that are more complicated. But again, based even on some of our earlier work in biopsies that we've done, is that, to get changes in collagen, to get changes in elastin, it's usually that 2 month to 3 month period. So again, it's going to be extended out. But to your point is that there's an opportunity that we saw in this particular study that there was continued improvement for a longer period of time on BIOJUVE than on the generic cosmetic product.
Right, and keep in mind we're also talking about more aspects than just acne scars or just one single problem.
Yes, that's a good point.
If you look, can you pull up the last image on the
You're not just looking at change in scar, you're looking at all changes, discolorations, texture, tone.
And these individuals were treated the entire face. It wasn't just the acne scar, it wasn't just, the small area of the cheek where they had scars. It was
full face.
Full face.
That's right. So if you look at this image that we pulled up here, this is from the study.
This is remarkable.
This is actually one of my favorites because you can see from both the side and profile, the front and the profile, this lady had a lot of PAH, she had a lot of mottle pigmentation. She didn't have a lot of fine lines or wrinkles or anything, but she had textural issues, and she actually, you can see some active acne as well. But if you look at the night and day difference, even in the tone of her skin, it's just her appropriate natural tone, where you can see that her complexion's a little muddied because of all the pigmentation issues in the original one. or in her baseline, I guess. So you can pull that down.
I think
So
it's,
I would recommend everybody take a look at this study, because part of the beauty is that you see some of the before and afters from the placebo group as well, and you can see that there are changes in their acne scarring, which is important. But it's just about saying the sentiment that Angela's really trying to drive home here, which is it's not about good. We got good. It's about the best.
It's about optimal.
It's about what people are paying good money for, and making sure that they have every opportunity. Because just like any medical device modality, you don't have a 100% chance of success. There is kind of like, it depends on your physiology,
scale.
medicines you're taking, the condition, how bad it is. And one of the things that excited me about this study is that in all the microneedling we've done, we've seen a lot of softening of acne scars and such. This is the first time that it looks like they're gone.
And I think it's worth important. This is 4 procedures, where normally for this patient type, we would recommend 6 procedures.
That's true.
So I think that's important. And then at 6 months post 4th procedure, this is when we take final data cut. Is there an opportunity? At what percent do you think the remodeling process is over? Because you said the remodeling can still be happening up to a year.
That depends on the person.
So between 6 months to a year, do you think at 6 months, 90% of it has occurred, or 80% of it has occurred, or what do you think the number is? Or is that hard to say?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to say. I mean, it depends on also other things that are going on within that individual and other exposures they might have. What their age is. I mean, all sorts of things come into play that may make a difference regarding, again, with the data that we had from an earlier study that for when we did a biopsies and for our lines and wrinkles indication, that showed the fact that even at the later time points, we were just starting to see elastin coming up. So that's why we talked about, had we done a 6-month study for that particular one, we may have been able to have elastin protein actually being deposited in the skin. But we just saw the markers for the messenger RNA, which is a
it's kind
indicator,
of a signal, a surrogate for it.
For elastin being upregulated or increased.
Yep. So in previous studies, when we took final data cut at, 2 months post final procedure, you could tell that we really hadn't recognized the bulk of the remodeling that was going to occur. It was pretty much in the midst of remodeling, or in some cases of elastin, just getting started. Is that what I'm hearing?
Essentially correct, yeah.
But at 6 months post final procedure, what you're seeing is, pretty much the bulk of what you're going to get in most cases with skin remodeling.
Yes, and just before, because we're running short on time, I do want to say what you're saying is absolutely true, but keep in mind that in the study that we're talking about, they had very similar acne scar reduction scores. So it wasn't the acne scarring that was a differentiator, it was the fact that the BIOJUVE group globally had all the other things that were aesthetically changing.
Texture, toned. It's just they're looking at the skin quality overall, not necessarily just acne scar.
So the acne scarring itself, the remodeling, it still is what happens with microneedling as we expected, both groups. It was with the BIOJUVE that it actually allowed them to take that treatment and make it a more holistic, globally useful treatment, which frankly, I think is where people are going to really see the difference, is that plus, I will say that some of the before and afters of I didn't do the scoring myself. I think Dr. Alcom did the scoring and a couple other people. But when I look at the ones with the BIOJUVE group, I think that they look more substantial myself. But I think she used what the Goodman. Baron Goodman scale. Correct. I keep forgetting.
Yeah. But and also just overall in the CGIS as well, sort of the clinical global assessment scale. So,
well, I'm just talking about for the scarring.
I'm sorry.
Is that
okay.
The way that you do scarring is improvement? Number, quality. And so I personally think that we're just touching the iceberg as far as what we can do here if we optimize the skin biome with whatever modality, and we think we've got one of the only right now available, but whatever modality you use, we think we have the opportunity to take medicine, dermatology procedures and actually optimize them. And this is just the tip of us kind of observing that and seeing where we can go from here.
And really allowing patients to get the most out of the investment that they're making. in these procedures.
Yeah.
And I love that, and this is something that Dr. Anna Perret corroborated as a practicing dermatologist the other night in the webinar, is these were patients that, in this case, study subjects that were treated for 36 weeks on both microneedling and BIOJUVE. They're acne prone, and just again to touch on what we just talked about in our previous podcast, was you don't see worsening of it with either of these procedures. So I think that was good timing too on the publication of this study to show with the science, again, not what we're seeing anecdotally on a patient here or there, but collectively, what is the science telling us about this patient type?
Real world is definitely relevant, right? We need to know what's happening in real world, but clinical studies are typically much more controlled, so there's not other factors that are leaking in, hopefully, although no study is perfect. But real world is important because that they go and they do the things that normal people would do, but still that's where, we take all this information and just move forward with ideas of how to best do things. And so it's one of the reasons why we say don't microneedle in topicals, don't put things on the face. It's not because there's not something out there that might be able to be used properly that way. It's that all of the information we've seen over the years has told us this is the best practice. Deviating from that is something that should be done thoughtfully and intentionally. And that's the same thing with what we're talking about here, is that we now have evidence to show that you don't necessarily need anything acutely if you have optimized skin biome, because it takes care of everything post-procedure already. So
very nice.
We'll leave it at that.
I love it.
Any last comments, Dr. Jones?
No, again, take a look at the study.
What about Dr. Alcombe?
Hopefully she gets
Speak
better.
for her. We hope you feel better, Dr. Alcombe.
All right, Angela?
No, I'm just, I'm thrilled that we're bringing this level of data to our customers and answering this question for them, and, thank the scientific team for the work that was done here.
All right, how about the doctors on the peanut gallery? Any last words or comments? No, he's looking at his watch, which means wrap it up.
Dr. Maldonado wants us just to wrap it up. We're gonna...
Doctor's appointment at 3.
Oh, that's right.
She has to make it.
All right, so
thank
let's go ahead and end it there. Thanks to everybody. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on crownlaboratories.com or One Crown. Is it on here?
One Crown.
Nope. All right, One Crown.
At One Crown?
I think it's at One Crown
Oh
or something.
my! Now you're in trouble.
Oh boy.
Sorry,
Put that
Jill.
in post. Put that in post on there. But you can find me at dr.t.hitchcock, and you can find Angela Wilson McDonald on Instagram. If you want to follow us there, that's great. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, as we said before, just so we can get people watching and listening on Spotify. Make sure you favorite us on your list. And we hope that you gleaned something from this conversation. And we will see you next time. Goodbye for now.